Daniel passed away, so you'll be returning to your family home, won't you? It's sad when a house becomes empty, so we will live there," my mother-in-law said with a twisted smile. After the funeral of my beloved husband, who passed away suddenly, it was his parents who hurled abusive words at me while I was still unsettled. I felt scared, but I corrected her misunderstanding. "Actually, this house has already been sold. My name is Holly. I work as an office clerk at a real estate company. The place where I met my husband Daniel was also my workplace. He was the brother of a male colleague, and as the two close brothers often visited the workplace, I became acquainted with them. Gradually, as we spent more time together, like having lunch, I was drawn to Daniel's personality and brightness, though I didn't consider him as a romantic interest at first. Then one day, his brother had set up a dinner with me and Daniel, but he couldn't make it due to a sudden matter, and I decided it was too good an opportunity to cancel and kept the reservation. That's how Daniel and I ended up spending time alone for the first time. It turned out later that his brother had secretly planned this, and at Daniel's request, his brother had arranged for us to be alone. Thanks to a delicious meal, our conversation naturally livened up, and we quickly deepened our familiarity as we discussed each other's backgrounds and values. The more I felt his profound personality, the more I was drawn to his warm smile. From that day, our relationship moved to a new phase. It didn't take long before we got married, and without his brother's arrangement, we wouldn't have come this far. In this sense, and for future events, I am deeply grateful to him. Then the day came when I first met my parents-in-law. Though I was filled with anxiety, they treated me very warmly. Our conversations continued, and gradually my tension eased. "It's really wonderful to meet you, Holly. I hope today turns into a wonderful day," my mother-in-law said, while earnestly entertaining us. Daniel's parents, like Daniel himself, had a strong, independent spirit and approachable personalities. And relieved that the time spent at my in-laws' house was enjoyable, I was enveloped in gratitude. After many discussions, they only wished for our happiness and maintained a suitable relationship without imposing marriage or parenting on us. Although living together with them became a topic of conversation, Daniel and I had plans to build our own home. On top of that, I explained that my grandfather had left a house for me. His parents listened intently and agreed for us to live on our own. Being the only grandchild of my grandfather, I was very much loved and ultimately inherited a wonderful, fully renovated house and land. It seemed as if my grandfather waited to pass away until the inheritance proceedings were completed. The land was located in a developed district, and its location increased the value of the property. Having worked in the real estate industry for many years, I judged that selling it would be more beneficial than living there. Although I was grateful for my grandfather's love, I was free to either live in or sell the property, so I considered the option of selling it early on. After getting married, we moved to that house, but it was far from work, and despite its convenient location, it was difficult to live there long term. As the plan to sell it progressed, Daniel was suddenly transferred, causing a major change in our lives. His company is a large corporation with many local and international branches. Despite being newlyweds, Daniel was designated as the only suitable candidate, and refusing the order was impossible. "I'll come home during holidays, and my parents will visit too. I don't want to impose on you, but could you take care of my parents a little? Both of your parents are kind, so I'll be happy to enjoy spending time with them. However, it seems that we have no choice but to wait until you come home before we sell the house." As I was tied to my own job, Daniel went on his assignment alone. Faced with this unexpected situation, I had no choice but to suppress loneliness and worry, and wait until we meet again. As Daniel had predicted, his parents began to visit often on holidays, especially his mother, who frequently came. She herself had experienced loneliness several times during her husband's long business trips in the past. "We can still have a good family time without kids around. Shall we go out together? Shopping will brighten your mood. Let's go, Holly." Thanks to her invitations, I managed to feel less lonely, and my holidays often became busy. However, as time passed, I started to have concerns. Almost every holiday, my mother-in-law would invite me out, and while that itself was not a problem, over time, her invitations became more forceful, and her disregard for my fatigue and household chores became more noticeable. When I said I wanted to rest, she frowned as if I was being selfish. "But going out together is fun, right? Or do you dislike spending time with me?" she asked. "No, that's not it at all. I just thought maybe you could use a break too since you invite me every week," I replied, causing her to look a bit saddened. I hurried to clear up the misunderstanding, but she wouldn't listen. When I accepted her offer, her face brightened into a smile, and she acted as if she had forgotten all her previous insistence. However, my suspicion of her behavior gradually grew. All the places she took me involved high expenses on my part. The outings continued with shopping at branded stores and dining at expensive restaurants, and the payments were increasingly pushed onto me. She would often leave the store first, leaving me to handle the bill alone. There was never a word of thanks for the payments, nor was there any reimbursement. Indeed, I own a house and have a sufficient income, so I don't have financial worries. However, Daniel and I have been cautious with our spending for years, so her lavish lifestyle felt distinctly uncomfortable to me. When both of my parents-in-law were together, the situation was even worse, as Daniel's father's presence only increased my burden. I knew this needed to be resolved, but I found it hard to discuss with Daniel. He had promised to come home every long weekend, but his duties at his new posting were incredibly demanding, and returning as planned was difficult. When I connected with him over a video call, he was concerned and said, "I heard from Mom that you've been going out every week. Are you okay? Do you have any worries?" His exhaustion was evident on his face when we talked. Thus, I hesitated to bring up the issue with his mother and ended up lying to him. "Your mom has been very kind to me. Take care of yourself too, Daniel. Don't worry about me. I'm fine," I said, but in reality, I quite couldn't refuse to pay for my parents-in-law's high expenses. Their demands grew stronger over time, and one day when I said I couldn't go out, they made an unexpected proposition. "Hey, could you lend us some money? Just a little." "You're asking me to give you money." "It's just a small amount. I've already made a reservation at the restaurant. I'm taking some friends, so can you pay the difference?" they requested. When I tried to refuse, I felt the situation might escalate and felt at a loss. Reluctantly, I decided to pay and open my wallet unhappily. I had resolved to never tell my husband about such situations. "Why don't you talk about it with Daniel?" When I casually asked his mother, she replied, "It would be unseemly to speak of such matters to Daniel," surprising me with her viewpoint. She feels that bringing up such topics with her eldest son is shameful, and that she should rely on me instead. I have already given up expecting anything from her, as her monetary demands have become a routine part of our interactions. When I simply pay what she names as pocket money, she stops taking me out forcibly. It was clear that this situation was escalating into a significant problem, but I was completely exhausted because conversations with her were not going well. Her actions became increasingly incomprehensible and bizarre day by day. During an unannounced visit, she looked around every corner of the house, making me feel like my home's privacy was being violated. "Did you inherit this from your grandfather? It's very nice. It's amazing that you have such luxurious things," she commented. Some of the furniture were antiques, my grandfather's favorites, and my mother-in-law seemed very fond of them, admiring them lovingly each time she visited. However, this is our home, the home of Daniel and me. I decided to confide in my husband about his mother's behavior. I was anxious about how he would react, but I hoped we could work together to find a solution to her actions. His mother's behavior was not pleasant and constituted an invasion into our family's privacy. At that time, a fixed period for the end of Daniel's assignment was determined. I believed that if I could endure a little longer, his return would put an end to the financial demands from my parents-in-law. A slight hope began to flicker in my heart. Daniel was working hard every day, so I encouraged myself to endure just a bit longer. I was looking forward to his return, but then an unexpected event occurred. What? Daniel has collapsed. He's at the hospital now. Shaken by the news, I rushed to the hospital immediately. Daniel suffered a sudden heart attack caused by overwork and passed away before help could arrive. My kind husband, who prided himself on his health, was suddenly taken by illness. I was unable to accept this reality, and the funeral passed in a blur of deep sorrow. Daniel's younger brother rushed over and took on many responsibilities. "Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing for us," I said, and he replied, "It's all for my brother. Also, is everything okay with the house and land?" I nodded and responded, "Everything is perfect." As we cleaned up after the funeral, talking with him slightly soothed my heart. A few days after Daniel's funeral, his parents came to our house together. Clearly, the purpose of their visit was not to comfort me. "It's truly unfortunate that Daniel passed away so suddenly, but don't worry, we're here," said mother-in-law, strangely smiling. Moreover, she had prepared a truck filled with furniture and various belongings. I was speechless at the moment, engulfed in shock and confusion. It seemed as if they were preparing to move into my house without any discussion. I already knew the reason for their actions. "Could it be that you've been after this land?" I voiced my long-held anxiety. His mother smiled coldly and said, "The value of the land has really gone up. We've always wanted this house. Actually, the reason you could marry our son was this house. We agreed to the marriage because the inheritance was settled." Her words left me speechless with despair. "Are you saying you want to live here with me?" I asked. "What a foolish thing to say," his mother retorted. Daniel's sudden death was unexpected, but despite this, his mother had always intended to acquire the house. Daniel's parents were trying to take over the sovereignty of our home, assuming I would automatically leave. "Now that Daniel has passed on, you'll go back to your parents' home, right? It would be sad if the house were empty, so we'll live here," his mother said with a twisted smile. Despite feeling frightened, I corrected her misunderstanding. "Actually, this house has already been sold," I said. It was hard to suppress my laughter at her surprised face. At that moment, another moving truck appeared. "We came to help. Can we start bringing in the stuff?" asked the new movers, as the other truck was in the way, and burly workers began to assess the situation. The mover she had called also got out. With multiple trucks arriving and work being interrupted, Daniel's parents started to realize something was off. Even when pressured to explain the situation, the two were too confused to respond. Arguing would not solve anything. I regained my composure and calmly directed the trucks to be moved. "This house now belongs to a new family. The contract has been completed, so you cannot bring someone else's belongings here." Between the surprised expressions of the workers, a luxury car pulled up in front of my house. A wealthy-looking family emerged from the car. This land was no longer mine, they were the new owners. Daniel's parents could not keep up with the unfolding events, and their confusion only grew. "We need to move the trucks so they can move into their new home," I urged, and after instructing Daniel's parents' trucks to be moved, the new family's furniture began to be smoothly brought in. However, my parents-in-law could not accept the situation and kept appealing to me persistently. Meanwhile, the buyer's husband, after having his family wait in the car, hurried over to us to understand what was happening. "Who are these people? We bought this house. Could you please move the truck?" demanded the new homeowner, raising his voice. I apologized deeply for the sudden visit of my parents-in-law and the ensuing chaos, explaining the situation carefully. Nevertheless, my parents-in-law acted as if the house still belonged to them and boldly entered the house. The inside of the house was fundamentally different from what they remembered. Not one piece of our furniture remained. My mother-in-law was shocked by the change and began to unravel, raising her voice. "What have you done? The house is completely empty. Where are the antiques and lighting fixtures? What is happening?" As my mother-in-law struggled to comprehend the chaotic situation while clearly displaying her anger, the new homeowner became more emotional and yelled, "I'll call the police." As a result, my father-in-law, unable to hide his agitation, hurriedly ran and forcibly took his wife away. After they had moved a distance away, it was evident that my mother-in-law gradually regained her composure. I promptly offered a heartfelt apology to the new residents, hoping that outlining the details to my parents-in-law would temporarily stabilize the situation. Although I was at my peak of exhaustion, I still felt it essential to explain the situation to my in-laws. I went back to them and calmly, but in detail, explained that the sale of the house had been completed just before Daniel passed away. This house was planned to be sold from the beginning, and everything proceeded according to plan, I told them. Despite a temporary interruption due to Daniel's assignment, the sequence of plans had progressed very smoothly. This smooth progression was possible thanks to the significant support from Daniel's younger brother. Without his cooperation, it would not have been possible to proceed so swiftly. Confused by my parents-in-law's demands for money, and not wanting to trouble Daniel, I had been unable to consult anyone. Noticing my situation, Daniel's younger brother extended a helping hand. Although he did not get along well with his parents, he had promised to offer help whenever needed. Wanting to maintain a good relationship with Daniel and his parents, I decided to confide in his younger brother. He had also promised to keep things a secret. After hearing everything, he did not hide his anger towards his parents. He said that his brother Daniel was his only family, and I was also a family member to him. My parents either want to live with us in that house or drive us out to make it their own, he stated, exposing his parents' lavish lifestyles and pretentious nature. Although his mother appeared charming on the surface, she was essentially selfish and spiteful. According to Daniel's brother, his parents always sought luxury items and, being blood relatives, knew the truth. Daniel was unaware of this side of his father, but his brother suggested that we should sell the land. I agreed with the suggestion and decided to proceed with the sale of the land. Rather than holding on to a house that could jeopardize our relationship, I thought it best to ensure no problems remained for my cherished family. Indeed, this decision was not made unilaterally. While Daniel was still alive, we had thoroughly discussed this issue, and he had given his consent. In the process, Daniel came to understand the true intentions of his parents. I didn't want to reveal this fact to him from the bottom of my heart, but I couldn't complete the sale alone. Nevertheless, he understood my difficult feelings and firmly stated that he could not forgive his parents' actions. "I'm sorry, but if you think it's best, let's sell it before something happens. It's hard to let go of our beloved home, but..." "No, if a problem is going to occur, I think my grandfather would have wanted to let it go," I replied. I decided to sell this land to protect our future together, rather than destroy our family relationship. Daniel's younger brother used his real estate expertise to find the best buyer. My remaining task was to quickly find a new home, move out, and manage everything without my parents-in-law realizing anything. This house was almost new and very well maintained, so it attracted a buyer quickly due to it being offered at a below-market price. I think this low pricing strategy worked well. As a result, the sale process went very smoothly, without any issues. The buyers were the new family who had just arrived, and they are now starting their new life in this house. Originally, I had planned to wait for my beloved husband's return to our new home. Daniel was also very pleased with the sale of the house, but the reality that he is no longer in this world is the only regret that deeply remains in my heart. Currently, the movers are very efficient and are quickly bringing in furniture. Their efficient movements are making this move even smoother. Even after Daniel's parents left, the moving process was progressing smoothly, and it seemed as though there were no problems for the new residents. However, the peace was short-lived as the movers hired by Daniel's parents, unable to grasp the situation, expressed their anger and demanded an explanation. For them, the sudden occurrence of double booking was completely unexpected, and the confusion was indescribable. This is not supposed to happen. This is clearly a breach of contract. Daniel's parents were fiercely confronted, but they could not explain the situation well and were merely fidgeting. My mother-in-law, having grown up in a wealthy environment, was accustomed to getting anything she wanted. Therefore, when faced with the reality that she could not have the house, deep frustration and a distorted jealousy took root. Eventually, her resentment towards the house and land grew strong, leading her emotions to escalate into criminal actions, and consequently she was sent to prison. My father-in-law, who originally had a supportive role within the family, saw their relationship rapidly deteriorate after my mother-in-law's arrest, and he eventually forcefully proceeded with a divorce. As a result, even after my mother-in-law's sentence ends, there will no longer be a home for her to return to. This can be seen as the outcome of the path she chose for herself. Meanwhile, Daniel's younger brother, mourning his deceased brother, says, "I can bear it because my sister-in-law supports me, always encouraging me. Although my connection with my parents-in-law has been completely severed, I have not entirely lost my family. Believing that my late husband watches over me from heaven, I sincerely hope to continue living peaceful days.